And with us all the way from Sydney, Australia is Goose McGrath. And Goose, you are the founder and CEO of the Investor Lab on the web at theinvestorlab.com.au. Welcome.
Josh, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It's always a wonderful pleasure to being able to speak to people all around the world and to be able to share insights and ideas with people like yourself. So thanks for having me.
I should point out that as of when we're chatting right now, it's 5:30 Goose's time. So listen, Goose, if you got this much energy at 5:30, yours is probably a great podcast you want to hit subscribe on. And the name of the podcast is just the Investor Lab. So whatever podcast app that you're in right now, search for the Investor Lab, hit that subscribe button, and you're about to hear more. You'll hear more of what you're about to hear. Goose,
absolutely.
Please tell us what the Investor Lab does.
Well, the Investor Lab, we like to say it's the auditory epicenter for passionate people seeking a life of freedom, choice, and abundance. And that's a lot of words of basically saying we help people who want to use real estate as a vehicle to create more freedom and choice in their life, which is what a lot of people do. And right now, our big focus is on helping business owners to navigate that pathway. Mm-hmm. Which is something I'm really, really passionate about, and I think it's a really unspoken issue out there in the business world.
Yeah. So talk about the personality type of the business owner and how that relates to real estate investing.
Yeah, that is a really good question. The personality type of business owner and how it relates to real estate investing. Well, here's the thing. So I think we need to look at it from a couple of different angles. So like entrepreneurs and business owners, whether they be small, medium business owners, all of that kind of stuff, they're typically creative, ambitious. They're not afraid of, they know how to manage risk. And they're actually, in my genuine belief, as someone who is a business owner, and my brother's a business owner, and all my friends are business owners, they're the people that are out there actually trying to make a difference and trying to make some change. Yeah. Whether that be a difference on a micro level to a family, or whether it be on a difference on a macro level to a community. And what I tend to see is that ambition gets really driven in a really focused way. And so business owners typically spend a lot of time, energy, money, effort, learning how to grow their business. I mean, how many podcasts, books, courses are there for business owners to learn how to make more money in business? But the big problem that I see is that no one's actually talking about what to do with it then. There's a big question that doesn't get asked. And then what? And so that's the question that I want to try and answer, because for a lot of people, you can actually there's obviously a lot of struggles and challenges in growing a business and doing all of that kind of stuff. But then you can get to a point where it's like, okay, well, it's actually making money. And now what do I do? Do I just go and buy a nice car? Mm-hmm. What's happening here? And so one of the big things that I've noticed is that there is no future planning happening with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, and you can end up finding yourself stuck in a trap, just like someone who's working a job. Worse though, because you have no safety net. And so that's something that I really want to try and change by helping people helping business owners to start to think about, how can I create an additional income stream? How can I create that environment? Because the net benefit is not just, how can I leave my business? How can I retire early, so to speak? But if you can get a business owner, and if you can remove the economic reliance of the business to them, if you can detach those two things, that allows these passionate people, these excited people, these people that have got vision and drive to really focus on creating impact without having to think, okay, hang on a second, how am I going to pay for the bills and all of that kind of stuff?
So I'm curious about this is, do you see any apprehension in that audience? So if let's say you're chatting with business owners and you're talking about real estate investment, and they say, well, Goose, like my number one investment is my business, and I don't think real estate can really outperform what I'm doing in business. What do you say to that?
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree, but here's the thing. So like in business, you can technically make, it's the asset class or the investment vehicle that you can make the most amount of money. All you need to do is look at someone like, Jeff Bezos or anything like that and see, oh, look, you're going to struggle to find anyone who can do anything like that with real estate. But here's the thing. It's extremely active and it's extremely volatile. That's the downside. So whilst you do get you do have a lot of really potential upside, for every success that you hear about, there is probably two failures, right? So the volatility, the reward is high, but the risk is also very high. And it kind of doesn't matter how established you are in business either. You know, you can have people who've been in business for 20 or 30 years and the market can change. Something can shift, and it could be the coronavirus. It could be government policy. It could be all kinds of things that change, and that can really, really collapse a business very quickly. So whilst the gains are there, it's a cash flow vehicle, and it's a very active strategy. So that's the way I like to think about it. I like to think about asset classes as what they can do as individual things. So business is a very active strategy. You need to show up pretty much every day. Otherwise, the business is not going to keep working. The way I like to think about business is, and business versus real estate is, you know, if you build a real estate portfolio that can pay you money and grow in value at the same time and do all of that kind of stuff. Now, if you were to, you know, go into a coma for 12 months, let's just say the worst thing happened, you hit by a truck, you went into a coma for 12 months. Would you wake up wealthier? That's the litmus test for me. Now, with a business, the likelihood of you disappearing from your business for 12 months and then suddenly appearing back into business and actually having the business being better, healthier, making more money is extremely low. But if you can create that outside of business, that's going to give you more structural stability. And I think that you touched on a good point there. A lot of people are like, well, why would I take money? I can get a 7x return on my marketing. Why would I spend money on real estate? The reality is it's about diversification and freedom, because until you can crack that code that allows you to have that freedom to leave or come back and do all of that kind of stuff to your business, you're essentially still you've basically built a cage for yourself.
Yeah. And so in terms of vehicles or best strategies for real estate investing, what are you a fan of?
Absolutely must be cash flow positive, right? So in the US, there is there's a high, like cash flow real estate is a much more prominent thing than it is here in Australia. Largely just because of the economic dynamics. That's all it really is. However, one of the big issues that I see people that invest in real estate is they might buy nice places in nice areas, but it's actually going to cost them more money to hold than it's going to produce. I believe firmly that every asset that you hold must produce more income, create more revenue, create a net positive operating income than it uses. So, but the other part of that is that you can't just chase cash flow, because one of the most powerful forces in the world is compound interest and compound growth. So you really need to focus on getting those two elements working together. Now, that's only two parts of what I call the Holy Trinity, which is a 3-part strategy. So the 3 parts are cash flow positive. So it must produce a net positive income so that you have a net positive income stream. It must have a strong capital growth or appreciation so that you get the benefit and the wealth creation factor of compounding growth. But then you must have the ability to control or change that asset over time, or the ability to add value. Now that could be through, you know, a cosmetic renovation or subdivision or some other kind of way that, let's just say everything goes sideways. Let's just say there's a change in the government. Let's just say the local industry collapses or whatever. If you have a way to control that asset where you can go, okay, I can do a small amount of work, or I can do whatever lever I can pull that's going to force more cash flow, more appreciation into that property, then that's going to give you that control so that you can weather any kind of economic storm. And that's what we're seeing with all of our clients as well, that they're the ones that are not having to worry about what's happening in the world right now. And it's very empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did what's kind of your story and like how you got into this?
That is a great question, because I am not a real estate guy. I started my first business when I was 17 years old, left school, and went out into the world and started organizing music and arts festivals. So I actually traveled the whole world. I had companies established in 3 different continents, so Europe, Asia, and Australia. Worked on stuff in the US like Burning Man, worked on Olympics, worked on all kinds of stuff, and for about 13 years. Traveled the world, living the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, which was fantastic until it wasn't. Now, I got to when I was around about 30 years old. The businesses I had built, I hadn't built them very well because I didn't really know much about building businesses, and it was all based on sweat and energy. I was working 100-hour weeks. I was burnt out. I was essentially broke. When I actually met my now partner, Gabby, I was sleeping on my office floor. I had nowhere to go. Life was not great. And then, as happens when you meet the love of your life, we started thinking, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to change all of this kind of stuff? And so we set out on a bit of a mission we're like, okay, well, life's not that great right now. I'm not in love with the business anymore. I need freedom. I need, and so we thought, well, let's do what young couples normally do. We'll go and buy a property, right? And we had no idea what we were doing. We had literally no idea what we were doing. And we somehow managed to make every single mistake in the book, right? We bought the wrong property in the wrong place at the wrong time, all of that stuff, right? Which in and of itself was the best thing in the world, because as soon as we made that mistake, we went, right, hang on a second. There's a lot more to this than we initially thought. And that sent us on a bit of a quest to understand how to master the game. What are the mechanics? How does this actually work? How do people actually make money? From that, we developed the skills and abilities to start helping other people, and we spawned this business. And it was through that transition that we changed industry. We've been serving heaps of people and getting really great results.
Yeah. Are you primarily, so I know you like positive revenue properties. Do you then prefer to buy and hold, I would assume, rather than so I'm just going to buy this property and fix and flip it in 90 days.
No, so the reason that's an interesting point. I mean, you can definitely make money by doing fix and flips, but and I'm not sure what the taxation situation is like in the US particularly, but by the time you add in all of your selling costs and risks, I think that it can be a very high risk strategy. You've got to get a lot of return. Now, here in Australia, you have a thing called capital gains tax. So let's say you make $100,000 of profit on the property, you're going to end up paying roughly about $30,000 of that in capital gains tax. Wow. So you've got to make a very significant profit to make that worthwhile. I prefer the flip and hold. If you want to do a flip and hold, right? Yeah. So if you bought a property for, let's say, $300,000 and you added value to it and you added and it was now worth $400,000, and then you've created $100,000 worth of value, rather than selling it to unlock that, why don't you have more cash flow in your portfolio so you can feasibly refinance that and still use the capital whilst holding on to the property? Yeah.
So you started doing this. Obviously, you're having success yourself. At what point do you say, I know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start teaching other people how to do this? Because there's a lot of real estate teachers out there. So why throw your hat in the ring?
Yeah, totally. So I think a big distinction is that we're not, we don't have a course, right? There are a lot of people out there saying, here's a course, just do this thing and off you go. The transition point for me was actually a really interesting one. So we spent about $100,000 in about 12 months on education, right? Purely just mentors, teachers, blah, blah. We did all of the courses that you could do, basically, right? We went and absorbed it all, me and my partner, Gabby. And it was right around the end of that period that one of my businesses actually failed. I was running a music festival and it just, there was a sequence of events and that collapsed. And I was really at that turning point in my life. And I was like, at that point, at the same time, other people were starting to come to me and going, hey, I can see that you know all this stuff about real estate. Is there any chance I can get some help? And that just sort of naturally spawned. And we sort of went, well, there's a bit of, there's a thought here that we could actually just go and serve other people and do that. Now, the big distinction for us is that because we don't have a course, it's a service-based business. So we actually go and do the work. Yeah. As opposed to, hey, here, sign up. Here, I'm going to teach you these ideas. And hey, hopefully you get it right. We actually work with our clients to go, what is your plan? Or where do you want to get to? Like, where are you now? Where do you actually want to get to? What is your income goal? What is your wealth goal? What is the thing? And then we actually go and do the work. We actually go and do it. We go, all right, let's go and help you build that portfolio. We'll find you the properties, because that way business owners can focus on their business and they can focus on that revenue. They can focus on all of the stuff that they're really good at, the skills that they've developed, without having to take the energy and effort away from it. Because I think that's one of the biggest issues. If you can go and learn about real estate, and then you got to go and spend 20, 30 hours a week trying to work out how to do it and hopefully don't make a mistake. And we want to remove all that risk. Well,
that sounds like a good, so they come up with the investment, and together you work on. Now, is there a certain type of property that you like?
Houses, detached houses. Multifamilies are good. you guys would call them over there multifamilies, or duplexes, triplexes.
What do you call them?
Duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. Oh. Yeah, multifamily, the term doesn't really get used over here very much.
Yeah. So what happens if it's a 10 family? What do you call it?
We don't have that many of them. we just don't have that many of them. You know, so we just call
this apartment building.
Yeah, we call it a unit block. Yeah.
Oh, unit block. Okay.
yeah. And it's interesting because I'm obviously passionate about. I look at all the stuff in the US, and I'm looking at all these like 10 packs, and I'm like, why can't we get more of those over here? They're a lot rarer commodity over here. So we look for detached houses with land, typically. The reason for that is the capital growth rates in Australia are very, very good, and largely that's dictated a lot by land, right? So you can get a lot of benefit of that if you can combine the cash flow element to it. So,
well, excellent. Okay, Goose, tell me about the book.
Yeah, great. That is a great question. So, I actually got a copy right here. So I wrote a book.
I thought you'd like that question.
Yeah, I wrote a book which we launched at the start of the year. It's called Limitless: The Renegade's Guide to Building Wealth Through Property. Yeah. And that kind of details my journey into property and really helping people to understand on a high level. I wrote it from a perspective. I'm obviously Australian, but I wrote it from a perspective that it was guided by principles and philosophies that could be applied anywhere in the world. And that was the deliberate intention, was to not make it so tactical that it would only work in a certain place for a certain market for a certain type of person. And I guess it's in some ways it's probably a little similar in the breadth and scope to something like Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's much more specifically geared specifically around property. Now, about 30% of it is about mindset and you know, discovering your own internal spirituality and stuff like that. Wow. Around 30% of it is understanding, all right, how does property work as an asset class? What's the go here? And then around 30% of it is okay, here's actually how you go and do it. And so it's a really good guide for anyone who wants to get into the game or start to understand it a little bit more and to understand what's possible. Because, you know, I've had a lot of business owner friends who have actually read this book, and they said to me at the end of it, they said, I literally did not even know that you could do that with real estate. So it's a great eye opener, and it's getting a lot of great reviews. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So your website is theinvestorlab.com.au. Yep. And then from there, up in the top, there's a link that says book, and you can click on. Anything else that folks should look for? Obviously, we talked about the podcast, The Investor Lab. Definitely subscribe and listen to that. Anything else?
I would say, look, that if you head to theinvestorlab.com.au, that is a great source. You can get from there, you can find the book. From there, you can find our buyer's agency service, and we can actually go and help you build a property portfolio. You know, from there, you can reach out and contact us. There's loads of great resources on there as well. Like we have deliberately set up the Investor Lab to be a hub that if you actually go and listen to all of the episodes and download all of the free resources on our website, you can go and become a successful real estate investor. And there's no catch. You can go and do it all of yourself. But of course, if you want help, you can reach out to us there as well.
Excellent. All right. Goose McGrath. Again, the website is theinvestorlab.com.au. And that's the name of the podcast, The Investor Lab. And of course, on the website, you can find the book and stuff too. Goose McGrath, thank you so much for joining us.
Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.